And look at that intro.
Oh, that is
Every
beautiful. Who
month
did
we get a
that?
little more just professional.
Man.
And here it
Oh.
is, April 6th, first Sunday of the month, 2 days after the anniversary of the gunfight at Blazers Mill, where Andrew Roberts was shot in the gut by somebody, and Richard Brewer was killed, Beaudry wounded, George Coe wounded, Scurlock wounded, although I believe Easton says Scurlock wasn't there. But we're going to talk about that today on Chasing Billy. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I look forward to these all the time. And tonight, in addition to Josh and I's beautiful faces, we got Jeremiah joining us as well. Jeremiah, welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here. I don't offer much for knowledge, but the looks had to improve.
We're just excited that Lucy's here. I'm going to be honest.
Can we give an introduction to Lucille back there? Lucy.
That's awesome.
She
Didn't
Lucy.
even really notice her back there.
She's about as
She's
excited as Britt is when we do this.
You kidding me? This is Lucy's favorite day of the month.
There you go. How you been, gentlemen? What's going on? What's new?
Well, not much. Studying a lot of things. Spent today looking into Blazers Mill because of this, and really came away feeling like I had a new grasp on the situation. Spent the past, month or greater part of it reading George Matthews' new book, and other than that, just taking it easy. What about you?
Well, I guess the highlight for me, the Poe book came out last week, finally. So been doing some marketing and advertising for that. Did an interview for Cochise County Travelers. Yep, there it is. Beautiful, beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Look at that beautiful thing right there.
It's actually selling really well. So thank you, everyone. Like we say, all the proceeds for that go straight into the coalition account to help fund all these things we do. So much appreciated. Hardback came out about a week afterwards, and it's been on the market a couple days as far as the hardback goes. So I know a lot of people were waiting for that. So yeah, I've really pretty much just focused on that the last week with a couple interviews and stuff. Jeremiah, what about you? What can you make up?
Off the top, we got a couple of top secret projects in the works, and that has occupied the bulk of my last month. I think between the three of us, we have spent a lot of time, and so we should have some exciting stuff that's going to come out. Some never seen before things. So that is what's occupied mine, and people are like, "Why the hell are you so vague?" I think in the next, Josh? What do you say? 10 days or less, we should have a release on something new.
Yeah, we got a brand new thing. Yeah, that's going to hit the market. I'm going to finalize and check a couple boxes and hit the go button probably tomorrow. And so yeah, within 10 days we'll have a new thing out that's pretty excited. That I'm excited about. Yeah, man, it's good stuff. And Jeremiah, you're aware James and I have been more James than me. I'm just here for emotional support or working on another pretty big project that will be out within the next month or two. So we've actually been very busy. Yeah, it's good stuff, man. What about news? What do we need to update everybody on before we get down to it? Let's see. What do you got, James?
Before we go, I think there's one piece of obvious news that we probably would have overlooked if Colin had not said something, and I'm looking for his chat now. He says, "Hi, folks. New time slot."
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of got the idea to try it later in the evening to see kind of how that would work with some folks. We want to gauge everyone's reaction, everybody's feedback on this, and see if maybe later in the evening is a good time to do this instead of where we were meeting earlier in the afternoon.
Right. That's a good point. Good point.
My only qualm with this gentleman is I'm of the age where this late start is rapidly encroaching on my bedtime.
Well, Lucille's already
7 o'clock Central, which is Look at Lucy. She's already shacked out. I mean, this is what time we usually start watching TV and wind down.
Well, you guys had a tough day at the golf course, so I can see why you're tired, sir.
Kathy said she loves the new time slot.
Yeah, Lucy absolutely is in favor of it.
So, yeah. Right
Mario said, "Did we get actual luminol on top of the stairs?"
Too soon, Mario. Too soon. The wounds are fresh.
Yeah, but that is one of the top secret things that we speak of. So sure, still working on it, Mario. What else?
Hear my dog barking. My dog is clearly not early to bed kind of dog like Lucy. But yeah, if you hear barking, that's just how it is.
James, I've seen the schedule your family keeps. Nothing about it is early to bed, sir.
That's right. Or early to rise.
Messages from you at 3:30 in the morning. I don't understand it.
Hey, that's when the brain starts working for me. And that's like Jeremiah said, as close to his bedtime. I'm not as sharp as I am in the afternoon right now, but I do like it. I like the evenings. I can spend all day thinking about the topic we're going to discuss and that kind of thing. So I do like the new time slot. I hope everybody's cool with it.
Yeah, so far it seems to be working better for me as well. But yeah, I'd like to. Anybody has any bitches or complaints, throw them in the comments, and we'll try and figure out what works best for everyone. But so far, this seems to be doing pretty good.
Nice. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning.
And I think Shane, our buddy Shane's probably out there right now. He messaged me also from Australia saying he was going to be able to watch it now. So while I think, unfortunately, we kind of lost a few of our viewers over in England and whatnot, I think we picked up some in Australia. So,
well, Andrew, you can tell your wife there's many a slip twixt the cup and the tip. Lip, I'm sorry. Comrade Cardigan.
It's the only thing that I'm watching at 3 a.m. right here.
Like he said.
Oh, geez.
Oh, man.
Adult entertainment for you.
Yes. We've we're moving up in the Billy world in the production realm. Our friend Delacote is helping produce, and he is a master at his craft of production, and he's a filmmaker and a better musician than me. It's like everything the guy does is cool and amazing, and it kind of makes me angry. But we're gonna try to bring you some regular segments every show, kind of like a Tonight Show in the top 10, and we're going to do recurring things that you can count on and look forward to the show. And one of them is we're going to talk about a photo every show, a potential Billy photo. We know everybody loves photos, right? Right, guys?
We use the word potential very loosely. I just want to throw that out there.
I've noticed, since I started in the Billy world, that the photo topic is one of the hottest topics, and I'm not sure why it draws all the people in, but it definitely draws all the unique people in. And there was one that surfaced this month that we thought we would look at. We've seen it quite a few times, but without further ado, I'll begin the well, hold on now.
Damn it, James.
I would have never guessed that you'd be the first one to have technical difficulty.
James,
the first thing Josh did. I'm just trying to make Josh feel better because usually, it's all on that guy.
Yeah.
But it's not I would say it's not my fault, but nobody ever believes me. But anyway, this segment is...
There we go.
The photo review for Chasing Billy, sponsored by Furlong Photography, Las Vegas, New Mexico. If your family needs a portrait or your wonderful backyard needs photographed, stop by at Furlong. The folks there will take care of you. I believe they have some amazing deals right now. Just swing by. They're actually in the 1880s. They don't have a web address, but stop by in person. And what? It's fantastic.
I love it, man.
So
that's great.
Thank you.
That's too good. Thank you.
That's too good. Great job, Pierre.
So,
sorry, go ahead, James.
Do you want to tell us anything about where you found this photo, how it came to your attention, that kind of thing?
Well, I've seen this photo obviously a dozen times over the last few years online. It usually seems to circulate more on one page than any others. I saw this on another Old West page talking about how it's a photo of Billy, and then the author goes on to say that numerous people have said it's debunked and asking for proof that it's not Billy, which we all know that that's not how science works. We don't have to provide proof that something doesn't exist. We don't provide proof that unicorns don't exist. It's up to the person presenting the image to prove its authenticity. So I am not a believer in this image for the most part, but let's see what everybody thinks. And then
bring it up.
Right. Let's do it.
All right.
Beautiful bean footage. What is this? Okay.
Yes. There
first,
it is.
Let me just say that if you gave, and I have to be honest with you, I think I've seen this in passing. I typically dismiss these so quickly that I don't pay them much mind. I'm looking at this again, and I'm hard pressed to pick Billy out of the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Just for the sake of fun and games here, if one of these might be Billy, I'm going to say it's the gentleman with the above the guy that's sitting. Is that Billy? Maybe.
Correct. This is the one in the center with the violin.
Mm-hmm.
If you can see that he's holding a violin, a fiddle,
right.
That's the proposed Billy.
Well, that's it. That confirms it for me. My suspicions were correct.
Yeah,
it's a dead ringer.
You were. So anyway, the issue is, that we've all seen it before. It's been in tons of books, tons of Facebook posts. The problem is the way it was presented this time is that the acknowledgement that, yes, this has been around, we've all seen it, and it's apparently been debunked. But like Josh said, if this is, the poster then went on to say, if this has been debunked, prove it. And you see this time and time again with photos of people pushing a photo, submitting a photo to public review and saying, hey, this is Billy. If you don't think so, prove that it's not. And they do it with Jesse James. They do it with all kinds of Wild West figures. That's not how Providence work, is it?
No. And it's not just with photos. Like I said, it's with Bigfoot, it's with unicorns, it's with religion. You pick your topic. You're going to find the other side that demands that people that maintain the status quo prove that they're wrong. And again, that's just not how it works. James, what can you tell us? I mean, I know a little bit of the history of this photograph. Do you know of anything in it that might legitimize it? Because again, obviously I can't say anything with 100% certainty. So what can you tell us about this photograph that might make folks believe it's legit?
I mean, I don't know why anyone would believe it's legit, honestly, but
all right, fair enough.
The most folks who believe it's legit are folks who also believe that Brushy Bill was Billy. And the reason it comes, and I'm not saying that because both sides are stupid. I'm not saying anything about people who think that Brushy was Billy. That's fine. People can think whatever they want to think. The reason why most people who accept this photo believe that it's Brushy is because it came, as far as I know, from the same source. And one of the sources inside the Brushy camp, and that is Myrtle Abel.
Right.
And of course, Myrtle, she was an old lady in 1950 when Brushy Bill was making his rounds, and she submitted an affidavit that said, hey, I know Brushy's Billy. He used to come visit me and my husband, John Abel, and we knew he was Billy, and it was Brushy. It was this man that's here now in 1950, and so on. So this photo, as far as I know, kind of came to light. I think it may have even been produced by her and made public by her through perhaps William Morrison. But if you look here, this is the first time I think that it appeared in print. And this is in 1954, maybe. I'm off the top of my head. I may be wrong on the date. It was in the 50s in Noah Rose's album of Gunfighters. And It says Billy the Kid is in this group, and it says this picture was taken in Pecos City, Texas. First off, Josh or Jeremiah, do you know of Billy ever going to Pecos City, Texas, or what? I mean, I don't know anything about Pecos City, Texas.
That's going to be right around where the Clay Allison stuff took place at. It's deep West Texas. 3 hour
just a little south of Abilene.
Yeah.
It's actually the locals there will chastise you. It's pronounced Pecos, despite its how it appears. They call it Pecos. And no, I've never seen a Billy connection to Pecos, Texas whatsoever. And it's also the third worst town in America.
What are the first two?
I've been there.
I'm living in one of them.
Josh's hometown.
So, do you also say Pecos River,
Albans,
or do you
Virginia?
say Pecos? Yeah, you know that. So, is it Pecos River or Pecos River?
I always say Pecos, but I'm not from down there. So
I don't know about the river, but I do know in the town, which I used to have some business dealings in, that the locals call it Pecos.
That sounded shady as all get out.
It's
business dealings, some business dealings.
Cartel doesn't talk.
Yeah, but okay, so yeah, we have no idea. Sure, Billy can go anywhere he wants. We've got a lot of years unaccounted for. Picture was taken in Pecos City, Texas, in 1880, in Old Town, in the banks of the Pecos River. Standing left to right. Okay, left to right. We've got Charles Dixon. This guy looks like Two-Face from Batman here with the picture quality. Charlie Bowers. I've heard that name before. We'll have to look into that. Unidentified man here. Did I miss one? Like, it skipped one.
Stand from left to right. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
I just want to know
Charlie Dixon, Charlie Bowers.
They're calling that
unidentified. Yeah. I don't know. They skipped a guy. So
Luke
probably
Short.
books in the 50s.
Yeah.
Billy the Kid. Okay. Jesse Evans right here. So this is Billy and Jesse in 1880. Think about that for a second. In 1880.
Okay. Where was Jesse Evans in 1880?
Texas.
Well, part of the time he was in jail.
Yeah, or jail. Well, yeah, depending on when in 1880.
And with them, Luke Short. The Dodge City Gambler, is that right?
Yeah, that's Luke Short.
Yeah.
He was in he died in Fort Worth in 1896. I'd have to check and see where he was at in 1880, but that's that looks more like Cousin Corky than it does Luke Short.
Looks more like Sloth from the Goonies than it does Luke Short. And then sitting man unidentified, and somewhere in here is John Abels, of course, Myrtle Abels' husband. Photograph was badly faded and damaged. Okay, so as far as I know, the first public appearance of this photo was in this album of Gunfighters by Noah Rose, N.H. Rose. And it came from the Abel family, the Abels family, which, of course, Marta was a huge proponent of Brushy Bill, supporter of Brushy. That being said, that's all we know about it. That's all we have in terms of evidence of who this photo is of, where it came from, all that. So when someone posts this and says, prove it's not Billy, what do we have to work with?
Well, here's an interesting little tidbit that just a quick search pulled up. Luke Short, and this is an excerpt from his biography, one of his biographies that was written. Luke Short in 1880 was registered in the Leadville, Colorado census. So according to their census in 1880, Luke Short was residing in Leadville, Colorado.
That's
pretty far from Pecos.
Pecos. That's a miserable drive in today's standards. I can't imagine what that was like.
Horseback. Yeah. So, I mean, we got documents that put Luke Short somewhere other than, so there's one problem with the photo.
Well, and those that are familiar with the Brushy narrative, Abel was proven to be a liar when we found her birth date on a census that said she was 9 years old at the time she claimed to be married and feeding Billy. So, as far as I'm concerned, you can throw everything out she says, including that photo. So it's hard to say you're a supporter of that photo and not the Brushy narrative at the same time. So, anyways, come on,
DB.
Could have
Cooper.
been here, DB.
Keep it up,
Could've been
buddy.
here,
Keep
man.
it up.
So yeah, without getting too much into Brushy, I will say I think Myrtle Abels also never even claimed that they knew Billy before his death in 1881.
Right.
So even granted that, it's entirely possible they met somebody who claimed to be Billy through the years, but they
I've
had no
met him
idea
3
because
times.
they never met the real Billy. And I think that probably happened a lot with Brushy. These people would meet Brushy maybe in 1915, 1912, and he would tell them he was Billy and they'd believe him. And so when he came back around in 1950, they were like, yeah, I met him in 1910. That's Billy. And it's like, no, that's the same guy you met in 1910 who said he was Billy then too. So,
well, boys,
the good news. Go ahead.
It's a no.
I don't have
Man,
that.
how did you do that?
I know. We know I'm not going to figure that out. So
That's all I've done today. That's all I got to contribute to the show. I peaked.
I'm going to have to get with our producer and figure out how to do that. DB, the good news is we've just finished our first segment, Billy Photos, or whatever it was called. I've already forgotten what it's called. Brought to you by Furlong Photography. And you're here for the rest of the show. Do we want to get to the meat of the segment now, boys, or is there something else you want to talk about?
Let's talk about it, and if we get tired of that, we can custom discuss about other things. Let's talk about Blazers Mill.
Let's blaze up.
Well,
let's blaze him. All right, Josh.
I throw myself out.
What you got, Jeremiah? What do you think?
I'm excited. Why don't you lead it off? Let's give the people a little background. What's the significance of Blazers Mill? I mean, it's probably the most notable as far as name-worthy, recognizable event in Billy the Kid history. It's one of the top, certainly. It's one of the top sites people ask us about when they're like, "Hey, can we go see a site?" We get asked the most probably about Blazers Mill. That's just my perception. What's the significance, Josh? What's the what happened there, and why did it happen?
Well, obviously, the regulators clashed with Andrew Buckshot Roberts, and let's go ahead and for the people that will correct us, he was not referred to as Buckshot at the time, but that's where the regulators clashed with Buckshot Roberts in April 4th of 1880. So, like James said earlier, 2 days ago. And I've always said if I could see one event in Billy history, firsthand, it would probably be this gunfight. Why we talk about the OK Corral and don't talk about this more is I don't know, because this was arguably the best gunfight in Old West history, in my opinion. Ooh. So yeah, at the end of it, you had Buckshot Roberts dead, and you had Dick Brewer dead, and the two gentlemen are currently buried side by side on the hill up overlooking the interstate now. So. Wow. There we go. That's a drone footage of the cemetery right now. Dick Brewer on your left with a triangular headstone, and Buckshot on the right with a white headstone. It's a military headstone because he did serve in the Confederacy, if I recall. At least that's what the headstone says. Now, I guess this is a good time to lead into that. James, I know you've done some ancestry stuff on Mr. Roberts. What little have you come up with in regards to where he was at prior to that? I know you've come across some dealings with him in Fort Stanton. Can you tell everyone about that a little bit and remind me?
Fantastic question, Josh. The answer is nothing. Nothing. We've come up with nothing. We've got one little snippet of information. And it's really, one of the more intriguing and annoying things about people in the Lincoln County War era is Buckshot Roberts, because we know so little about him. And it's really odd, because you would think we would know more about anyone given the records we have access to and everything like that. Some of the things we do know, of course, his name was Andrew L. Roberts. Mm-hmm. His reported alias or real name, one or the other, was Bill Williams. And I think it was McCubbin or Mullen, in their notes, they had interviewed a local who said that Williams/Roberts was rumored to be a deserter from the service. And so
I've read that somewhere too.
Yeah, and so I did find. I'll try to share it here and expand it, but there is a record on Ancestry of Fort Stanton, just like a monthly roster that they would send in, roll call, who's present, and everything like that. This is from April 1874, and I'll try to cycle through the images, and if we run into something that's for a little later in the episode, we'll just skim past it. But
Okay.
So April 1874, you've got your officers and your enlisted men and things like that, who's who. Down at the bottom, you have a guy named William Williams, and his rank is second class foreman, as far as I can tell. April 16th, 74 is how long he's been at the fort. So he was taken then. It says under the notes, in confinement as a deserter from the Navy, pending instructions from AGO, Adjutant General's Office. So we've got a guy in the guardhouse. We've got this Bill Williams in confinement at Fort Stanton for being a deserter from the Navy in 1874. So that's the only thing I could find about Andrew Roberts / Bill Williams that I think could be pertinent, and probably him, honestly. But everything else is rumor and legend and myth. The whole Buckshot Roberts taking on a gang of 25 Texas Rangers, getting pumped full of buckshot and unable to move. We don't know what's true or not with this guy.
And didn't Frank Coe, this is not a leading question, I'm generally trying to remember, I think Frank Coe gave an interview where he referenced that he was a deserter from Fort Stanton. Are you recalling that, or am I just imagining that?
I don't recall, because I don't know much about the Frank Coe stuff, mainly because he didn't write a book, and I'm not too. I don't have a lot of the Haley interviews on hand, and that's where most of the Frank Coe stuff comes from. Right. So I'm just not well versed in Frank Coe's related incidents, but he may have said that.
I feel almost positive that he said that. Now, whether or not he made that up, I don't know. Again, it is the Coes, but I'll dig through it. But yeah, I believe it's in the Haley interviews that he references that in an interview. That of course, he knew him prior to the gun battle, and I think that's what he references. His involvement with him is knowing him from the fort. So maybe.
So we know that the regulars had a warrant for Roberts. What's the details? What's the nature of that, Josh? What caused that warrant, or what caused them to pursue Roberts?
Really just his participation. He wasn't with the posse that killed Tunstall. He was with the original posse that went out to the Felice and came back empty-handed. Which, I'd like to, and again, we'll stop on speculation station here, like we like to reference. I've always thought it was a little odd that they would try that hard to go after a guy that wasn't even directly linked to Tunstall's murder. I mean, there were bigger fish to fry. There was more lower hanging fruit at the time than a guy that wasn't even at the event that sparked all this. So it's kind of made me wonder if they really were looking for him that heavily at the time, or if it was just well, hell, here he is, and why not? I don't know.
My opinion, and you guys chime in and let me know if I'm off base here, but I've always kind of been under the belief that I think they're running into Roberts at Blazer's Mill was pure happenstance. We know that the actual collision, I mean, Roberts left and then came back, and he was there to get a letter because he was moving. So the likelihood of him being there, I think, was small. I think that likely the regulators were on their way to meet up with Reinerson and help me out, James. Judge Bristol, right?
Bristol.
Yeah. Probably for some retribution, and I think Roberts was probably just an incidental finding on the way by happenstance. Thoughts?
Yeah, and James, I know we were looking at him earlier because George Coe's account of what brought them there and how they happened upon Roberts is significantly different from, is it Almer? Am I saying that right? Almer Blazer, his son. So James, I mean, is that your thoughts as well, that it was an accident, or which side of the fence do you fall on between the two accounts that we have?
So it wouldn't surprise me if the regulators had plans to take out Reinerson and Bristol. I mean, they've just shot Brady. They've just killed a sheriff. So I think that shows, and Heineman, a deputy. I think that shows that nothing's off the table for them, that they kind of committed to a no quarter kind of fight. And once they were sure that justice through legal means was done, they were going to do what they could. It wouldn't surprise me if they were angling for Reinerson and Bristol. I don't know geographically how that works. If they're going to Blazers Mill, is that on the way to where they would meet Reinerson and Bristol and whatnot?
Absolutely.
There was someone asked I think maybe it was Paul. Someone asked in the chat, did Roberts get in a gunfight with Beaudry and Billy earlier, before Blazers Mill? And there was mention of that.
Was there?
I think. Go ahead.
No, I guess I'm not aware. I'm inquisitive.
So I think Garrett says it in his book. It's in some early source like that. That somewhere around the area of San Patricio, and in that vicinity, and during that time where like the Seven Rivers Warriors and all those guys are going, just running after each other in the plains, there was some kind of like running shootout with Roberts and the Kid and Beaudry. Apparently, it's definitely an anecdote. It's definitely out there. Whether it's legendary or mythical or not, we don't know, or at least I don't. But yeah, that's definitely a story out there. And there's also, George Coe makes it sound like Roberts was going after them. And him and other people even said that Dolan had placed a bounty on the heads of the regulators, and that Roberts was going out to collect that. And in Coe's account, Roberts shows up with 2 6-shooters on him, his Winchester, and like 2 belts of cartridges, and just loaded up like Rambo and ready to fight. And he walks up and he's got his Winchester resting on his foot, and he's just like, let's do this. But of course, most reasonable accounts say he wasn't even aware that they were there, and he left his guns, rifle and 6-shooter on his mule. So there's a lot of things. I think a lot of folks tried to spin it that Roberts was after them and that he was kind of bounty hunting them and that kind of thing. But I really think, given the go ahead, must be important.
It is, James. It is. I was just going to comment that when I go to pick a fight with somebody, I wait till I'm outnumbered 12-1 before I do it. But go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the Young Guns narrative, though.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing. And I think even in Almer Blazer's account, or it would have to be, or maybe Paul Blazer said it, but like when Roberts hitches his mule and walks up, he sees Almer and folks standing there, and he asks, has a posse been through? Because he didn't see the horses. They were in the corral. So he doesn't know they're there, but he knows they've been around. So he's asking, like, have they come through? And then they're in there eating dinner.
I always thought it was interesting that, of course, George was part of the posse, but Frank claims he was there as well. Not part of the posse, just by happenstance, happened to be in the area doing unrelated business. And he was the first, in his version of the events, that he was the first to encounter Roberts, and of course, attempted to talk him into turning himself in, and obviously that didn't work, and now the rest is history. But I always thought that was interesting that Frank found a way to assert himself in the storyline. Think he was there, yes or no?
Let's talk about this, because I've got problems with the Coes, both of them. I really like, and the more that I study and learn and read and all these accounts and the firsthand sources, the more I'm like, the Coes really seem just to be these sensationalist folks, really taking advantage of the spirit of the 20s and 30s and the dime novel stuff, and really just leaning into their roles. And I was talking with Josh earlier today about Frank Coe. I'm like, I don't know what to believe about that guy's involvement in this shooting. Like whether he even and I was like, at this point, I'm doubting whether he even sat down and talked with Roberts. But I did find an article, April 18th, 1878, so just days after it happened, that pretty much gives the same version that says Frank Coe sat down with him, but we don't know who told that person that. Maybe that was a line Frank always gave, but
maybe Frank.
I'm really not convinced.
You know, and it
just
kind of. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just for the people out there, Josh, why don't you do us a favor? I'm going to bring up a map, a drawing of Blazers Mill, and if you want to, why don't you just walk us through maybe the steps and kind of the location here. I'm going to add this to the stage. It's not the clearest, but I think this will kind of give the people an idea. Why don't you just take us through, like,
Right.
And then after this, I'll bring up the actual site today, and we can talk about where things are at.
Yeah, outstanding. And this will. So this illustration here is taken from Nolan's book, West of Billy the Kid. So I don't. While Nolan has, and this is in my humble opinion, of course, I'm sure there's others out there that will disagree with this. But while Nolan has done a great job of laying out where all the structures are, I disagree on the Roberts route that he shows, which we'll talk about that in a minute. But basically, you have the large agency building on the right side, which is the largest structure there. The porch that they reference in all accounts is on the left side of that large agency building. So that would have been where allegedly Frank and Roberts would have sat and discussed for 20 minutes or whatever Frank tells, prior to the rest of the regulators coming in and intervening by coming around the building and engaging Roberts right there on the left side of that large building. So from there, that's where it kind of gets mucky. Go ahead.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Please do.
You mind if I switch out and share the screen so I can use a mouse cursor and kind of
that's perfect.
Circle the places and do that kind of thing? 1 second.
Sure, so James.
That way we can kind of. I should. Number one, that's correct, and
that's why your name's first on the captions.
Wow.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, so anyway, stop my narrative. So let's hope this is good.
I don't know. You're gonna have to show me how. What are we doing?
Yeah, I've
and they say
I've lost the narrative. Okay. So you see my mouse pointer here thing?
Yes,
okay. I'm ready. So this here is the agency building.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so and you were saying right here, correct. This is the west side. This is the side that has the porch on it.
Yes. It's a non-covered porch, which would have been where they were having this little powwow where he was trying to convince him to surrender. At a certain point in time, of course, the regulators would have gotten, according to Brewer's narrative, or what Brewer told them. Sorry, basically he got some of the regulators to volunteer, go out there and confront Roberts and arrest him. So they would have exited. Not really sure. I think they said the back of the building. So the top left quarter, the opposite of where you're at now with the mouse, James, would have been a store
right here.
Yeah. So they had the kitchen, which would have been right there in that corner, and then the store would have been over to your left. So they would have had
stores right here.
Yeah, they would have had them exit the north side, which fed into a corral, and loop around, pointing towards the arrow where it says "fight starts here." So that is correct. So my contention is, and where I disagree with Coe and Nolan, and again, Nolan gives two different accounts, but we'll come back to that, is once the fight starts there, every account you have says that Roberts, after the initial gunshots, backs into the house where he fortifies himself, etc. For some reason, Coe says that he ran over to Blazer's home, indicating that arrow, and Nolan in this book says the same thing. Now, oddly enough, in Nolan's Lincoln County War book, which preceded this book by probably a decade, I could be a few years off, Nolan has a different view, and in Nolan's original Lincoln County War book, he said that buckshot fell back into the agency house. So I don't know if Nolan changed his mind from one book to the next. Sometimes different research leads you to different opinions. I don't know what that was. But that's the basic layout of it. And again, it just depends on whose narrative you want to believe as far as did he retreat back into the agency building, which is what I believe, or did he go to Blazer's home, which is what this map shows. Before we dive into that, just so everybody can kind of know, so if you were going to look at it today, and I'll have Jeremiah put the map up.
Let's actually.
Well,
let me bring up some.
Real quick before we go off of this map.
Sure.
Just to kind of, like, we've gone through Coe's story, just to kind of get Almer Blazer's sequence of events, which kind of, when you put them together, it's kind of almost the same thing. But Almer said, and now Almer Blazer was the son of Dr. Blazer. Dr. Blazer built the agency, and then when he leased it to the Indian agency, Agent Godfroy lived there, and Blazer moved over to here with his family.
Correct.
And so at this time, you got Blazer living here and Godfroy living here, and Blazer having an office right here.
Correct.
And also the store. And so Almer Blazer says that the regulators arrived that day. Roberts has just left an hour or two before. Almer's hanging out. The regulators come up and demand food and feed for their horses. And he says they pretty much just took ownership of the place. They didn't ask for it. He points out they didn't ask for food. They demanded it. And he said that's just how it was in the Lincoln County War. One side would come, just have their way with the place and say, berate them for allowing the other side to come. And then the other side would leave, and then the other guys would show up and do the same thing. And so anyway, he doesn't make it sound like they were like friendly or warmly welcomed like Coe makes it sound. But so Almer's hanging out. They show up. He goes down here to the corral, and where Dr. Blazer is and the regulators. Dr. Blazer sees his son and says, "Go home." So he starts heading up this way with his friends. Joe Weaver, the cook, is out on this side of the agency building. The kitchen is right here. The dining room is right here. Joe Weaver says, "Hey, kids, go get me a bucket of water for these." He's irritated about having to cook. So Almer and the kids go back down and get water, and then they come back up. And instead of going back home like Dad said, they hang out here with the regulators and Joe Weaver and everybody outside. And then Mrs. Godfroy or whoever calls dinner time, and the regulators go inside to the dining room. And Almer doesn't mention anybody being posted here to keep watch. Coe says Middleton and himself were there. So they go inside, and Almer is hanging out here, and he sees Roberts approach. Roberts ties his pack horse down here. He comes up here, and he ties his mule to a stump right here. And as he's walking, Almer says he leaves his 6-gun and his rifle on the mule. And he walks this way just a couple steps. And as Almer's coming this way to meet Roberts, someone says, "Roberts is here," or "Here's Roberts." Roberts looks at Almer and the boys and says, "Get out of here." And Almer runs this way. And then he says he hears gunshots right here, which doesn't give a lot of time for Frank Coe to come over here and have a parley with Roberts. He says he comes around here after Roberts says, "Get out of here." Here's gunshots. He says 3 or 4 regulators run out of the kitchen right here, come around towards the shooting. Almer takes off this way and then decides he's going to run this way. So he crosses the creek, goes around the corral, and sees 2 regulators running after him. He says they weren't after him, but he, in his crazy state of mind, he thought they were chasing him. So later on, we can kind of conclude it was Beaudry and Brewer running this way after him. So here's Almer Blazer running from 2 regulators, and here's 2 regulators taking the same path by coincidence. And he runs all the way over here. And this is the mill, and this is the log pile. Almer runs into the mill house to get away from the regulators. They come this way. Everybody still with me?
Yeah, I'm here, buddy. Doing a beautiful job.
And then, what's funny is Almer says he goes to the blacksmith shop. I'm not sure if this is the right location, but this is where Nolan has blacksmith marked. Almer says he goes to the blacksmith shop and they all make fun of him for being scared, but they're eating lunch. So Almer realizes he's hungry. So he goes home and eats lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And while he's eating lunch, it was a strange time in Frontier days. I'm telling you, you're like in the middle of a gunfight. You're like, I'm kind of hungry. I'm going to go eat some lunch first. But he's here eating lunch. He hears 2 shots. He comes out, goes back to the blacksmith shop and says, anybody know what those 2 shots were? And they said, well, it sounded like one came from the mill, which would have been Brewer shooting towards Roberts. And it sounded like the other shot came from the hill, up on the hill, which would have been Roberts shooting back at Brewer.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Dr. Blazer has been in the barn with some regulators who showed up and said, we're going to hang out here till Brewer's done, then we're going to leave. So they're waiting for Brewer. Dr. Blazer comes to the blacksmith shop, and he tells the boys what's going on. Then he comes this way and sees that Brewer's dead. So he comes back, and Almer says that Billy the Kid and 2 other regulators show up here looking for Brewer. And Blazer says, Brewer's dead. And Billy gets mad and starts saying, you've got to run him out of there. I'm going to burn it down. All that jazz. And anyway, Blazer and Billy and the other 2 regulators go back here to join the other regulators, and they confer, and the regulators decide to leave. And that's Almer Blazer's account of events. Slightly different from Coe's.
Man, that was impressive, James. Thank you. No, that's spot on. And I think, James, correct me if you disagree, but I think that's probably going to be what I would consider our most reliable, reliable account of the gun battle. I mean, again, we've got Frank or George Coe's account later in life, but we've already discussed about the problems with that. So the whole eating lunch thing is a little bewildering to me. I don't really understand that.
Right.
But I mean, other than that, everything kind of lines up and to me makes sense, certainly more than how Coe portrays it in his book.
What I'm wondering is maybe it's such a prolonged standoff that, Almer being 13 years old, and maybe most of the folks there, they don't know if it's over or not.
Yeah.
And they're just everybody's kind of just standing around. He's like, well, I'm going to go eat lunch.
What I also think is interesting is if that's to be held true, he goes into the same house to eat lunch that Buckshot's fortified in, according to Coe and Nolan. Or did I misunderstand?
If they maintain that Roberts is in the Blazer home, then Almer went there to eat lunch.
Which is a very small, we've seen old photos of it. I don't know if we've got any to show now, but it was not they do. It was not a large structure. I mean, God, I would guess it was probably less than 1,000 square feet. So I find it a little hard to believe that you're in there eating a sandwich. Why the guy on the other side of the 1,000 square foot room is moaning in agony. So
let's I think.
Sorry, Jeremiah.
Hold on. Nope. Let's. I was going to bring this up real quick. Josh, is this kind of what you were looking for?
Yeah. That's one of them. So again, there's the plank porch that you see there. Now, this diagram was done by Drew Gomer's wife. Her first name escapes me. But I mean, she knows her stuff. And this diagram matches really closely to how the building is described in multiple sources. So yeah, it would have showed, Buckshot Roberts retreating into Blazer's office and of course grabbing the rifle and then retreating into the den, which again matches what Almer claimed as far as the sources of the gunshots go.
Well, almost matches. Yeah.
Close. So yeah, I just believe, I have a hard time believing that Roberts would have been inflicted with a serious wound, or even if he had not been shot yet. And we can get into that in the middle as far as who shot him and when. But you're not going to have immediate cover. You're outnumbered 12-1. They're shooting at you. You've got cover within an arm's reach of you. Yet instead of seeking refuge behind a 3-foot adobe wall that's immediately beside you, you're going to instead run all the way across to Blazer's home, which is completely open ground. It doesn't make any sense. So again, just from a tactical standpoint, the notion that Roberts chose to flee over to Blazer's home is just stupid. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
Get shot at and then choose to run 50 yards across open country. No, it doesn't make sense. So yeah, I firmly believe that he retreated into that house, and that's where he made his final stand, in that front corner room.
And that is the house that we typically see with the cupola, or however you say that.
Yeah, well, yeah, they called it you talking about the little watchtower up top?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Cupola,
And that was,
whatever it's called.
Yeah, and that was constructed that way specifically because of, so the Mescaleros were always fairly peaceful and agreeable. In fact, they all liked Dr. Blazer. It's kind of funny. He was probably only 41, 42 at the time this happened, a young, middle-aged man, but he was very gray. His kids said that he grayed really early. So the Indians were kind of spooked by him because they thought he was an old, wise man because he spoke so fluently, yet he looked so old, but he was so agile at the same time. So they got along with they got along with the Mescaleros at the time, but the Comanches were still there, which caused some problems. So yeah, when he built that, a lot of the mill at the time that it was built was all like log house, log cabin type structures. But they found out that the Indians could get a hold of the buffalo guns that were in the region, and that could penetrate a lot of those log cabins. So that's why they abandoned that construction idea, and they went with the adobe, which you see there. Like these had 3 foot thick or 30-inch, basically the same thing, thick adobe walls with portholes in it. And I think at least one time they stood off an onslaught of Comanches. So yeah, it was really built as much as for a fortress at the time as it was, practicality.
Hey, James.
I think go ahead.
I'm going to bring up just, and maybe Josh can look, I'm going to bring up or you can. Are you bringing up photos from your personal desktop or from the program?
From my personal desktop.
I'm going to add a photo here, and this is what Blazer's Mill property looks like at present time. Kind of gives a better outlook. Josh, I think people always enjoy seeing it. This is what it looks like today. In fact, this was taken last year by a really incredible photographer.
Mm-hmm. Lucy.
Actually, if you look very closely, you'll see me and Lucy in this photo somewhere. I won't say where, but where's Waldo? Josh, I think you can kind of, because people always wonder about locations and how it looks.
Right. So a couple accounts, I think Eva Ball's one, say that the highway went right through the battlefield, which is fairly close from my guesstimations. If I were to guess, and I could be off 10, 15 feet one way or the other, but you're going to see that tin building on the right side there. That, of course, was not there. That's a big silo barn type structure that's there now. But imagine just below that, between that tin building and that concrete retainer wall, would have been about the location of the Indian Agency building where Robert sought refuge. And then if you were to cross the highway right about where you see the recording marks at the bottom, 13.15617, etc., that would have been maybe back out of frame just a little bit, would have been where the woodpile and the mill that you can still see a quarter of the wall is just standing directly beyond that, behind the camera view.
Josh, I'm going to bring up an overlay, and it's not perfect. I overlaid this photo with the original map. And again, keep in mind, it's not great, but I don't know. Maybe this sheds a little bit. Knowing what that old photo looked like, this can kind of fairly close, right?
Yeah, I think you're going to end up, that is fairly close. But as you can see, I think you'd need to drop it down, just viewing it on screen, maybe an inch or so. Because we know the log, so where it says the log pile and the sawmill, that clearly is, there's still a corner of that standing on the south side of the highway there. So I think Nolan has this bunched together a little too much.
Not quite to scale.
Yeah, because I think you're going to need to probably double the distance and space between, as far as up and down goes, between where the mill is and where, the Indian Agency is. So hopefully, the highway didn't do us any favors trying to understand the layout, but this is another good one.
Yeah, I'm going to try to bring this up. This is actually a drone flyover. So you're actually looking from the back side where you're kind of looking at the road. Josh, you can kind of break down from here. Maybe this will give a better view.
Yeah. So first off, so we see the tin roof that we referenced again that was not there. The Indian Agency building would have been sitting right in front of that, close to the highway. Some people argue that it would have been on the highway. I disagree, but it would have been close to that location. Again, the building that's in the far right, I don't have a cursor, so it's hard for me to point, but the building that's in the far right, that was not there. That's the building that Nolan mistook for Blazer's home that Roberts fortified in. Trying to think where we're going here.
We're moving forward. This is actually just further.
So
It's coming down the canyon a little bit.
Right. Okay.
Wow.
Yep, that is. Yep. So that's right in the middle, top middle is that tin building that was not there. So you'll see a small structure to your right, like a light tan with a darker brown roof. That's not an original structure either, but that would have been fairly close to where to where Dr. Blazer's home would have been. And then again, up in front of that to the right in the corner is that structure that still stands that everybody sees and thinks is part of the battle, and it's not.
Right about where that truck was at on the other side of the road would be that structure, I think, right?
Right. Yeah. So if you go to the right side of the back of that truck trailer,
wow,
in the trees, you would be able to see the corner of the adobe mill that still stands.
I apologize. I think we can back up a little bit and get a better. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's just so much change, though. I mean, where there used to be a creek, and a road.
Yeah, and I've not done a lot of exploring on the south side of the highway where the mill building is, because so much of that is residents and people are living there and whatnot. But yeah.
Now, where did they bury Dick and Andrew?
So that's gone out
here
of
real
frame.
quick. It'll turn around and we'll see a good view. I'll capture a good view and then I'll.
So yeah, this would have all been the creek area, and of course you can see now there's people. You can actually see the little bit of the creek right there. So
I pause right here.
Wow.
So if you go to the right of that tin structure, it's kind of hard to tell, but you actually start going uphill, and at the top of that hill is where the cemetery is, and that's where they're buried.
Okay.
So yeah, so people that that come to visit, again, it is on private property. But in theory, people that come to visit, there's a driveway that leads right into there at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
And, there's a little parking area right there. And then you just have to walk on foot up that trail to the right that leads to the top of that bluff that overlooks that concrete wall. And that up top is where the cemetery is.
Yeah. So, and so when you're referencing that the Indian Agency building would have sat probably, I guess, just between that metal building and the retaining wall.
Yeah,
we're looking at.
Yep, I think absolutely. I think that's going to be pretty close. I mean, again, some people argue that the highway went through where it was at, but that puts it. If that were the case, that puts it too close to the mill building that we know is still there. That's the only structure that we still have standing. So using that as our central point, it would have had to have been past that retaining wall, probably between that and that tin building that we see. I think that's going to be pretty close, within 15 or 20 feet, one way or the other.
Interesting.
Again, that's just the only thing that's half of James's face. Yeah, that's just the only thing that's left of it is the cemetery and that little corner concrete wall on the south side of the road.
Man, that was great. Well, gentlemen, any last thoughts on Blazer's Mill?
Gosh, I feel like we could talk another hour on it. I mean, there's just so many discrepancies, and it makes you wonder how it went down. I don't know if Frank Coe had that talk with Roberts. Most people say he did, but I think maybe it was a much shorter talk than they've made it out to be. And maybe there was some disagreement. Maybe Frank Coe went out and was like, "I'm going to talk to Roberts," and Dick Brewer was like, "Let's go get him." Yeah. But the article from 1878 actually says Frank was in on it. He said that he went out, and while he was talking to Roberts, all the other regulators positioned themselves. And then at one point, Frank Coe throws himself out of the way, and the regulators open fire.
Sounds dramatic.
So,
and why not, if you're Roberts and Coe's talking to you, why not just simply walk back to your horse and ride off? I mean, they could have pursued him, but it's better than the alternative.
Right.
Yeah.
But we will, hopefully all of us can work on this and get to the bottom of who Andrew Roberts really was. I think Honeybee asked earlier about the time he may have worked for William Cody with his friend Sam Miller, and maybe that's a point of reference we can trace from, and because Sam Miller was the chief of police at the police chief or whatever they called it at the Mescalero agency, and worked at the sawmill, and was at Blazer's Mill for quite some time, and that's apparently who Roberts was visiting and staying with before he left. So maybe Miller is a good linchpin in all this and finding the identity of Roberts.
Perhaps.
I'm sorry, but there's also confusion about the agency building. I think a lot of people, they say, there's the agency building, but then there's also Blazer's house, this big house, and then, what happened where. And I think the confusion comes from the fact that that house they built later. Do you know anything about that, Josh? Like, they built another house, another big house with a wraparound porch.
Right.
And Paul Blazer even said some confusion came up out of that, of people saying that the gunfight happened there.
Right. I've seen a few photos of it, but yeah, I mean, it was built long after the actual gunfight. I think it ended up burning down. But yeah, that is part of the confusion, and I think part of the confusion also falls back on the fact that Blazer still had, he had a den or an office, whatever you want to call it, inside the agency building. So when people, sources say he fell back into Blazer's room or office, they automatically want to associate it with his house, but it was still the agency building.
Yeah.
So
okay, well, that's all I had.
I mean, we could go more, but I know how hard Pierre worked to get our book review thing up. So let's spend maybe 5 minutes talking about a book, James. Not
second.
James.
The second segment that you can rely on is Billy Books, brought to you by the Ash Upson Academy. Grades 1 through, however many grades there are, 12, I guess. I don't know.
In Virginia.
I didn't go to school. Yeah. Ash Upson holds school every term at the Casey Ranch. And, take your kids. Let them learn something. The Ash Upson Academy. But anyway. Hello?
I'm here, James.
Hi.
Hey, we're mastering the segment option. This is working.
It's getting better.
It's a work in progress.
You forgot how many grades. We were just blazing, Kristen, whatever your name is. I don't even smoke. Anyway, I read a book this month. It was a much talked about book, much advertised on Facebook and everything else. So there was much hype about it. It was Billy the Kid, The Life Behind the Legend by George R. Matthews. And I think everybody who's on Facebook and part of the Billy the Kid community knows George. He's been an active poster in all the groups, and nice guy. Nothing against George. George is a dude that's been posting for a while, and I don't have anything against him, but honestly hated the book. And expected more out of it, to be candid. This is a book that, everybody who's watched this show knows that my passion is Billy's origins. Where did he come from? And so when you advertise a book like this one does, that says it's going to offer a lot of fresh, new perspectives, and that for the first time ever, the whole person of Billy the Kid emerges, and it's going to draw on new research, you get excited. You think maybe George has uncovered something in Indiana or in New York, and you're going to learn about his school days. Maybe his name shows up on a record they finally found, that kind of thing. And it's like, who brought that back up? but
I
it's
don't know
like
what happened.
But it's like, so I waited for this, and I even messaged George at one point. Was like, hey man, if you need anything peer reviewed or anything, I'm happy to help you. I'm just really excited to see what you got. And he's like, no, it's good. Don't worry about it. It's, getting written, whatever. Book was like 2 to 3 years in the making, just talking about it. I know books take longer than that, but this thing was like a long time being talked about. And so I read the first chapter on Amazon as a free preview for the Kindle edition and was extremely disappointed. And anyway, I got a copy of the book. I read the whole book. And while I was not as disappointed in the rest of the book as I was in the first chapter, it was still largely something I would have loved to have said I would recommend as maybe an introduction or just a toe dip in the water. But
she's okay.
Jeremiah, does Lucy need a welfare check?
Lucille, her eyebrows moved.
This is why I can't talk about anything on this show. Everybody in the chat is very distracting. But overall, the book in general is something I can't recommend because of the bad history. And I mean, that's where you draw this line. Like everybody who writes a book, everybody who considers themselves a historian, we all do wrong history. We all get things wrong. I've gotten things wrong a lot. Wrong history is different from bad history. Bad history is not respecting the process, not respecting sources, not respecting how far you can leap logically. And throughout the book, George takes a lot of leaps that go way beyond the bounds of logic and what evidence supports. The biggest examples are in the first chapter. The leaps that he takes with Billy's nativity. There was a Catherine McCarty on this ship called the Devonshire that came here in like 1846, and she was born in 1829. So because Catherine McCarty's Silver City obituary said she was 45, this is that Catherine McCarty because she was born in the year that would make her the same age. And because of this is because of this record, Catherine McCarty was her maiden name. And she never got married. And because of that, she made up Michael McCarty to become a Civil War widow. And it's like all these claims compound on each other. And there's no record for any of it except this one immigration record that we're not even sure was Billy's mother. Did he check every Catherine who was born in 1829?
How many Catherine McCartys were there in that era?
There were lots. But at the same time, you're still assuming McCarty was her maiden name. He would have to check every Catherine born in 1829 and rule everyone out. I mean, to say that this one Catherine on record, okay, so ruling out all the other Catherines on record and all the other Catherines not on record, this is the one. It was a inexcusable logical leap. And I handle it more articulately in my Amazon review and Facebook post and another review that will be coming down the pipe. But there are things like that throughout. I mean, for instance, we were just talking about Blazer's Mill. He says, as history, he doesn't put forth the possibility. He says that Brewer and Roberts were buried in the same coffin. And so I understand that is one option, that has been claimed in the past. But it would be, to me, better history to say, it has been claimed they were buried in the same coffin, but this person claimed they were buried separately. Here's what we know. Here's what's probable, that kind of thing. And you examine both. You don't claim it as certainty. But then in other places, he takes that probable and that would have and that likely to new heights, to where most of the book, when it comes to specifics about Billy's life, is probable, most likely, he would have done this, he could have done this, he probably felt this way. And then the specific, well-documented, extremely footnoted history is the contextual stuff. Mm-hmm. For instance, he'll say Billy and Antrim and Catherine, they moved from Santa Fe to Silver City. And they probably would have taken this stage line. So we don't know that. But then he'll spend 5 pages doing a meticulously footnoted history of the stage line. And I think when you get into that kind of history, and I've encountered that with Wallace in Endless Ride. He does that a lot. He'll talk about the Barnum and Bailey Circus for 8 pages.
Yeah.
And then there was a guy who wrote, I think it's called The Last Rebel, about Jesse James. He does that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that kind of history that is extremely well documented when it comes to the world around the person, but pure conjecture when it comes to the person. And when you're doing that, it says to me that you don't really have any history about the person. So overall, I can't recommend it because of the bad history, even though it's capably written.
Yeah,
he did it. He worked on it. He worked hard on it, but it's just not good history.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. What I skimmed a good bulk of it on Kindle. I guess the best way I could summarize it is he seemed to take a lot of the ideas and research and possibilities that historians of the past that came before us have found and dismissed as just speculation or possibilities. And to me, it seems like he took those finds and presented them as facts. And I saw him do that pretty much through the entire book from what I saw. So
yeah, and like Roland says, records are sparse from that time, or sparse. I don't know. But it's more honest to say we don't know than it is to say she came here on the ship Devonshire. She took the Erie Canal to Indiana. Mm-hmm. She had promiscuous affairs in Indiana, had 2 children out of wedlock. They were born in Indiana, which is against records we do have.
Mm-hmm.
They went to school in Indiana, and she fabricated a husband to receive Civil War pensions that we don't have any records of. It's just insane.
Right.
And it's better just to say we don't have those records and we don't know.
Yeah, I agree. But that happens.
That's my rant.
You got anything, Jeremiah? I know that.
I feel wholly inadequate with my book review. James just gave a very thoughtful and deep dive. I'm over here reading. Let me. No, hold on. Let's bring this up. Well,
we can't talk about Dean Koontz on here, man.
Dean Koontz writes good books. I don't know what you're reading.
No joke. He does.
He does.
Hold on. Let's see. Yeah, this is what I'm reading. You are not going to learn a lot about history, but I am fascinated by locations, buildings, the story of structures, and I can't believe that this bad boy sat under my nose for so long. And then I was talking with Josh, and I don't know what we were just talking about. I think random buildings in Lincoln, daydreaming about what they were and what they might be. And he said, well, you have this book called Historic Lincoln, New Mexico. And I said, what? And he sent me the link, and I bought it, and I've gone through it. And it's one of the books that just kind of sits out, and I go through it constantly. It is a great read. If you're interested in the town of Lincoln, the author goes building by building and gives you kind of not an in-depth, but about a page or two, sometimes a paragraph history of each building in Lincoln. And it's a good, fun read if you want to know more about the town of Lincoln, New Mexico from the era of Billy the Kid. So I highly recommend it. You can get it on Amazon. I think I bought it off of Amazon paper for, I don't know, $15 or $20. Worth every penny.
Wow.
Yeah.
Never heard of it. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Josh, thank you. Great book.
Yeah.
I don't really want to talk about it, but I kind of have been reading another book. It's all right if you haven't noticed. I mean, it's not a bad read if you're into this sort of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, you were practicing this like 30 minutes before the show, weren't you? It's like I'm gonna press this background.
100%. I did forget on the news section. Just interestingly enough, me and Josh have been doing some top secret work, and we managed to uncover a photograph of some historians hard at work. Some of the Cold West detectives, I believe, were hard at work in this photo right here. I believe this is
Oh no!
some Cold West guys here. Blue on a B.
Did you know about that, Josh?
No, I had no idea.
So, this is history in the making, boots on the ground style. Josh, what do you got?
Cut the feed. Cut the feed.
Cut.
There you go. I don't read books, so I haven't. What's a book?
We're taking away Jeremiah's privileges on this thing.
Yeah, I know. Well, clearly, somebody doesn't meet administrator access on this.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
You know, I really haven't read anything honestly since the last time we met. I've been busy finishing up. God damn it! Cut him off.
Is this a train robbery? Because we've been derailed.
Yes, we've been derailed.
What are you reading, Josh?
What are you reading, Josh?
I'm really not. What am I reading? I could make something up, but I haven't had any chance to read anything in probably 2 or 3 weeks. We've been working on locating some graves in a couple states, so I've been doing some research with that. Most of the stuff I have been reading lately has been online, just dealing with archives and whatnot. So hopefully when we get a couple of these projects finished up in the next week or so, I can get back to something and I'll have a good thing to report back to y'all. Actually, I'll take it back. I know what I've been reading. I forgot. I don't have the book here to show you, but Gail Cooper's Billy's Bogus Bucks. Worst book title in the world, but some great
Billy's Bad Bucks Hoax.
Yeah, there, whatever. Bogus and hoax is in there somewhere. So really, that's what I've been reading. She does some great research, horribly put together books, but her research is phenomenal. Stumbled across some good things, interesting things with that we'll bring to everyone at a later time, because we're already 20 minutes over and it is past my bedtime. So
it's always a good show when we go over like this.
That's true.
So it means we've had a good time.
And honestly, there was probably 5 or 6 things on the list we didn't even get to. So that's all right. I'd rather have more to discuss later. So
and all the time I can take to spend with Lucy. Quick nod to Val.
Hands down, the best Doc Holliday in cinematography history, and one of the best Western roles ever played was Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday in Tombstone.
Absolutely.
Had a buddy say the other day, let's pay tribute to Val and do nothing but quote Tombstone lines all day. I was like, I do that all day anyways.
It's a Tuesday for me.
All right, gentlemen.
Not the best Billy the Kid, but he was a Billy. And
he was a Billy.
He has that honor.
Right. Okay.
Mikey, that's just black coffee for me, my man.
Water, sir. Just water. It's Sunday. I don't drink on Sundays.
Yeah. In his fantastic Regulators Tour Cup.
Mm-hmm. That Jeremiah is supposed to be finding a distributor to bring these out again, and he has not done it yet.
Excellent.
So,
excellent.
Not to point any fingers to that guy.
Right. Yeah. What's behind you?
as he scrambles to find something witty. No.
I'm having technical difficulties.
So again, I'm the only
you
one
can't find your laser show. I can't. Well, I think we should wrap it up, guys. It's been a good show.
So. I'm worried what he's going to pull out.
Great Blazer Mills talk, or Blazers Mill. I always get the singular. So many things in Billy Land. Jeremiah, you've got Stinking Spring or Stinking Springs. You've got Blazers Mill, singular. You've got what else do you have? That's a cheese. Anyway, there's a lot to keep track of, but Blazers Mill was a good discussion, and we could have talked 4 more hours about it probably, but I feel like I have a better grasp of it. For the longest time, Blazers Mill has been for me just some murky incident where, everybody shows up, something vague happens, and Roberts and Brewer are dead. And now I feel like I actually kind of understand the situation better after researching it for this show and looking at all the accounts. So that was good. We we didn't debunk a photo, but we proved that it has no provenance and left the responsibility of affirming it in the hands of the people that are supposed to. And we have discussed some books that we've enjoyed. So it's been a good show.
Yep. Man, you guys have y'all are going to work on a pre-recorded show, I think, coming up soon that maybe
we do
get done, before the next live show.
And, definitely want to get more content out there.
Okay. So yeah, that's all I got. Hopefully by next first of next month, we'll have some more cool news, another project reveal, and fun stuff.
Yeah, Lucy, you ready for bed?
Our producer, our producer Delacote made us an outro. So provided I set everything up correctly, there will be a nice little outro now that we have. But that's all assuming I set it up correctly. So
good luck.
Yeah, of course he's trying for his own show. He's been trying to supplant the Comrade cardigan ever since my rise to power. So
I'm gonna call it I Love Lucy.
I need all your support. Don't fail. Thank you all for hanging out with us. It's been almost an hour and a half of antics and distractions from 1/3 of us, and we've had a great time, and we appreciate you showing up and doing what you do in the chat and giving us a reason to be here. So thank you very much. I'm going to try to roll those credits. We'll see what happens.